Today we will talk about topic 4, other commercial property coverage options. Before we start today's topic, let's first take a look at coinsurance and how does it work through the payment of loss. Let's take one example. For example, business A has inventory that equals $10,000. Now, instead of purchasing insurance with policy limit $10,000 to cover all of its inventory, business A decided to purchase insurance with policy limit that goes only up to $8,000. So here's first question for you. Can business A purchase an insurance with policy limit that goes beyond $10,000? Well, technically, he can as long as he is willing to pay extra premium, because we all know that with higher policy limit, the premium will go up together. However, if there is a loss and the insurance company discover that business A only have inventory as $10,000, the policy limit will go down back to $10,000. So no matter how much premium you pay beyond $10,000 premium, you can only have policy limit up to your actual value of inventory. Okay, so in our case, business A did not go beyond $10,000. However, he go under, only covered $8,000. So let's take a look how the loss will be calculated. So this situation is called underinsured in insurance. So business A did not purchase enough insurance to cover all of its inventory that equals to $10,000. In this case, the insurer's co-insurance percentage will be 80%, and that is calculated by dividing the insurance limit with the actual cash value, and that will give us 80%. So if there's a loss, for example, if there's a loss of $3,000, the covered loss will only be the loss amount multiplied by the co-insurance percentage. So basically, only 80% of your loss will be covered because you only choose to cover 80% of your total inventory. And that will give us the covered loss amount being $2,400. So with this insurance percentage knowledge, we can investigate this chapter a little bit better. Let's take a look at what we're going to learn in this topic. First, we will talk about some alternative valuation methods. Now, do you still remember what is the most traditional valuation method in insurance? That would be actual cash value. Some of your inventory, your business would not be appropriate if it is valued by actual cash value. And that is why the insurance company offers this alternative valuation method as an endorsement. The second one will be blanket insurance. Blanket insurance uses one insurance coverage to cover multiple properties, and we're going to look at what are the advantages of blanket insurance. The third topic in this chapter will be fluctuation personal property values. Some businesses have seasonal business. For example, like if you're selling swimming suit or if you're selling Christmas tree, your business is very seasonal. And insurance provides this fluctuation personal property value to help to value those businesses with seasonal property. The fourth will be the limited international coverage endorsement. So this endorsement helps insurance company to value those businesses that have international coverage. The next one will be commercial property coverage form with other options, and we are also going to talk about the endorsement options for commercial property cause of loss forms. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the alternative valuation methods. So these various valuation methods will apply to property that are covered under the building and personal property coverage form, including the optional coverages for replacement cost coverage. There are three types of endorsement under the alternative valuation method. First, there is this manufacturer selling price. Second, functional building valuation. And third, functional personal property valuation. So let's first take a look at this manufacturer's selling price. Now we know that the traditional valuation method in insurance will be actual cash value. How does actual cash value works? Well, it basically evaluates how many years or how long of a time this property will be used, and then the insurance company is going to depreciate it according to how many years it has been used. However, certain properties of your business may not be appropriate for actual cash value. For example, for Apple, for the iPads from Apple, it is really inappropriate to depreciate those iPads because during the time when iPads are in the inventory waiting to be sold, its price just do not change. Therefore, actual cash value will not be appropriate for this case. And that is why the insurance company will provide this manufacturer's selling price as an endorsement to help this business. Specifically, it is going to cover this property using the selling price. That is the price the manufacturer sells to the retailers, not the market price, but the selling price, the manufacturer that sells to the retailer. And it will also less any discounts and expenses that the insured will otherwise incur. Now, it can modify the coverage under building and personal property that the manufacturer selling price endorsement values finished stock manufactured by the insured at selling cost. Now, it does not have to be sold. Remember, in BPP, what is valued at selling price? That is the stock that has been sold but not yet delivered. However, in this case, the manufacturer selling price do not require those items to be sold. And that is one difference between the manufacturer selling price with the stocks that has been sold but not yet delivered. Next, let's take a look at another alternative valuation method, the functional building valuation. Now, we know that there are certain buildings that were built maybe 100 years ago. Those items are really hard to depreciate because if you use actual cash value and depreciate it through 100 years, the actual cash value of it could be really low. However, the value of the building stands with something that goes beyond the actual cash value. And that is why the insurance company provides this functional building valuation, so that it provides a modified replacement cost that will cover the building. And it is especially appropriate for those buildings that has a replacement cost that goes far beyond the market value. And also, those buildings could be extremely expensive to reproduce or to maintain because those materials and techniques while building the building 100 years ago could be very expensive. Now let's take a look at how the insurance company is going to deal with it. So it really depends on what type of loss it is. For example, if there is a fire that completely burned down the building, how the insurance company will compensate that? Well, the insurance company in this case will cover the cost to repair or replace the building with less costly building that is functional equivalent to the old building. For example, if the old building has 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, then the new building will also be 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, but with the modern materials. However, if it is a partial loss, it doesn't make sense for the insurance company to tear the whole building down. In that case, insurance company will repair and replace the damaged proportion of the building. However, the insurance company will use less expensive material, but at the same time will maintain the architectural style that exists before the loss. So if there's a total loss, the architectural style would not be maintained. However, for partial loss, insurance company will do its best to maintain the architectural style of the building. Besides the building, there are certain personal property that also prone to the similar problem. For example, for some old machinery or equipment that is no longer available, such machine that has been superseded by a newer or more efficient expensive model, the functional personal property evaluation will work. For example, you have an 80s Apple Mac. Well, I guess it's not called Apple Mac but Apple PC. It's called an Apple Macintosh, which costs more when purchased than a new system that is so much cheaper and more powerful. If there is a loss to the Apple Macintosh, how would the insurance company compensate that? Well, the insurance company will choose to compensate it with the smallest of the following amounts. First, there is a limit of insurance. Remember, the limit of insurance will never go beyond the actual cash value of your item. And also, there is the second limit, that is the cost to replace on the same side the damaged item with the most closely equivalent property available. And the third one will be the amount necessary to repair and replace the property. So, whichever from these three is cheapest, the insurance company is going to use that value to compensate you. And of course, you have to contact the insurance company within 180 days to repair the loss. The next thing we're going to talk about is blanket insurance. And we said that the blanket insurance basically use one insurance coverage to cover multiple buildings. So as an opposite of blanket insurance, there is this specific insurance. Specific insurance covers each building for a specific limit of insurance, and personal property at each building for a specific limit of insurance as well. For example, you have $100,000 covered for the building at one location, and you have $80,000 covered on your business personal property on the other location. So those are the policy limits that will apply to each of these properties separately. However, an alternative to specific insurance will be blanket insurance. So there is no special policy limits for any one of the property. However, it applies as when you add up all the policy limits of all the properties that you own and become single one policy limit that will work for all the properties that you own. In order to purchase blanket insurance, there is a co-insurance requirement for that. First, you need to purchase more insurance than otherwise would be required, and that minimum co-insurance percentage will be 80%. However, you will only have to pay 80% of the rate. So the minimum co-insurance, even is 90%, you only have to pay premium that equals to 80% of co-insurance. And we know that the higher co-insurance percentage you get, the more premium you have to pay. So basically, here it will give you a discount. And also, if you choose to insure with blanket insurance, you would not have that 5% discount that would usually apply to the specific insurance. So for specific insurance, you could choose whatever co-insurance percentage you want. However, if you want to purchase blanket insurance, you will have to maintain at least 90% as co-insurance. So what are the major advantages of blanket insurance? Well, the biggest advantage of blanket insurance is basically using one insurance policy to cover multiple properties, so that the minimum amount of blanket insurance to comply with co-insurance requirement, which is 90% of co-insurance requirement, will fully protect the property. Now let's take a look at one example that contrasts blanket insurance with specific insurance. For example, you have two properties, both of them worth $100,000 as actual cash value, and you purchase $90,000 of policy limit of each of them. And basically that complies with the 90% of co-insurance requirement from blanket insurance. Suppose your loss is $95,000. Ignore all the deductibles. How much you will be compensated under specific insurance coverage? Well, since the policy limit of any of your property will be $90,000, if only one of your property has a loss, then that specific policy limit, which is $90,000, will apply to that property. Therefore, you can only get $90,000 as compensation for the loss of one property. However, if you maintain a blanket insurance, the story will be different. Instead of covering each of the properties separately, the blanket insurance provides single policy limit for both of your properties. So that would be $180,000. That will be 80% of the two of your property, which goes together as $200,000. Now with $180,000 property policy limit for both properties, it goes beyond your loss, that is $95,000. Therefore, all of your loss will be covered. So the insurance company will compensate you with the total amount of your loss, which is $95,000. So again, with the same policy limit, the same co-insurance percentage, blanket insurance will cover your property in a more comprehensive fashion. The next topic we're going to talk about is the fluctuating personal property value. Now we said that the inventory of certain business will go fluctuating when the season change. For example, if you sell Christmas tree, you're not going to have a lot of inventory of Christmas tree during the spring or summertime. So with fluctuating value, you can avoid by paying a lot of insurance in the low time, and you can also avoid going undercovered during your peak time. Now there are two amendments in commercial property coverage form that will provide more efficient ways to meet such need. The first will be the peak season limit. The second one will be the value reporting form. We're going to investigate each of them. First, the peak season limit. It is an endorsement that covers the fluctuating value of business personal property by providing different amount of insurance for certain time periods during the policy period. So the peak season endorsement under BPP will provide differing amounts of insurance for selected time periods during the policy term, as indicated by the specific dates that is shown in the endorsement. For example, if you sell swimsuit and you have it covered under a BPP providing a $3 million of coverage on business personal property with a peak season endorsement that increased the coverage to $4 million from February through May, which is the peak time of your manufacturing of swimsuit. Now, it seems like the peak season limit has solved the problem perfectly. However, now, as you think of it, it is actually based on prediction because you pretty much predict that your inventory will increase in specific time of the year. Now, that prediction could be wrong. For example, a lumber supplier usually have a peak season, which is summer. However, he read a forecast that new housing construction in local area is going to rise sharply in late spring, and consequently, he increased his inventory level in late spring. Now notice that we said that usually peak season will be summer, so he had a peak season insurance endorsement with peak season being summer. However, when he increased his inventory in late spring, he forgot also to increase his policy limit. Now, when a fire occurred in his warehouse, he would go seriously underinsured. In order to fix that problem, the insurance company offer another type of insurance that is called a value reporting form. It is a commercial property form that bases the insurance premium for business personal property on the value that the insured reports to the insurer periodically during the policy period. So with the value reporting form, there's a limit of insurance that will be set high enough to cover the insurer's maximum expected value at any time during the policy period. The insured reports the value to the insurer as a periodic intervals that will be specified in the form. Now, if you compare the value reporting form with peak season limit of insurance, for a previous example of lumber supply, you will see that with value reporting form, the previous issue that goes severely underinsured won't be problematic, since the supplier will follow the schedule report. So the value reporting form will reflect your real business inventory on a timely and accurately fashion. The major features of the value reporting form will be the reporting requirements, the limit of insurance, which is decided at the beginning of time, penalties if you do not keep a timely and accurately fashion on your value report, and provisional premium, and also some treatment of insurance. So first, let's take a look at the major feature that provided by value reporting form. Now, as long as you keep a timely and accurately fashion of your report, the insurance coverage will not limit recovery for a loss that occurs today to the amount last report. In another word, as long as you keep a timely and accurately report, even though last period you only have inventory of $1 million and you increase your inventory to $2 million, even though the $2 million was not reported in last period because you did not expect that increase of inventory. As long as you always keep a timely and accurate report, the policy limit will go up to $2 million. And it will cover the actual amount of loss even if it is greater than the amount that last reported. However, it will not go beyond the applicable limit of insurance. So what are the reporting requirements? We said that it has to be on a timely and an accurately fashion. So what does timely mean? For example, there is this different type of report. You either have a daily value reported monthly or weekly value reported monthly. So basically, at the end of each month, you are going to report the value of your inventory for that specific month. And what is the time limit for you to report it? So you must file the required report within 30 days after the end of each reporting period. For example, for the June report for your June inventory, you will have until the end of July to file the report. Now, if it is this first report, so if you increase your inventory, and that will become your first report, and for that you have 60 days to file your first report. So we said that you have to keep your report on a timely basis. If you fail to report the inventory on a timely basis, what are the subsequent penalties? So if you do not do it on a timely basis, there will be two types of penalty. If your first report was overdue, then the insurance company will only pay 75% of the amount. Now, if your first report has been made, but the second report will be overdue, then the insurance company will pay only the amount that was lastly reported. Now, if you do not keep an accurate report, what would be the penalties? Now, the insurance company's payment, which would never exceed the limit, will be the value that you reported divided by actual value. So if you think of it, that actually looks like a co-insurance, right? Because the co-insurance, you're going to insure only a part of the actual value. In this case, you only report a part of your actual value, and the value that you reported will become the co-insurance percentage, and that percentage will be multiplied with the loss and minus the deductible. That will become the actual money that you can be compensated by the insurance company. Now, we said that there is this something called provisional premium. What does that mean? You have to submit your premium at the beginning of time of your policy period. However, you would never be able to know how much of your inventory is during that time period until the last day of the policy period. Therefore, insurance company will say you only have to pay 75% of the premium at the beginning of time. Now, at the end of time, if the insurance company, according to the report that you filed to the insurance company, they found out that, well, the actual value of your inventory actually goes beyond to 75% of your regular inventory, then the insurance company will charge more premium, collect more premium at the end of time. Now, if they discover that actually during this time, your inventory is less than 75% of your regular inventory, then the insurance company will reimburse you of the amount of premium. So as you think of it, it is a very actual mimic of the actual inventory that you have. So during the policy limit, only the provisional premium will be paid at the beginning of time. The earned premium for the entire policy period depend on the average value reported during the policy term. So at the end of the period, an additional premium may be due, or there will be a refund to the insured. Lastly, there is this something called specific insurance. Specific insurance will be the coverage subject to value reporting form. Now, what does that mean? Basically, for example, if your inventory is covered both by value reporting form and other types of insurance, so that other type of insurance will be called as a specific insurance. If there is a loss, the specific insurance will go ahead and pay for the loss first. Any loss that is not covered under specific insurance will be paid under this value reporting form. So the value reporting form payment will be the total loss minus anything recoverable under specific insurance and minus the amount of the deductible under the specific insurance. So the peak season endorsement and value report form both address the problem of a fluctuation in personal property value. Now the peak season endorsement is based on prediction, right? So at the beginning of time, the business will evaluate or predict how much of an inventory will be during a specific time of the year. Now, since that is a prediction, it can never go too accurate. However, the value reporting form use a retrospective method. So at the beginning of time, only a provisional premium is paid. Now, the actual premium will be re-evaluated at the end of the time based on the actual report that has been filed to the insurance company. So it is based on actual record, and that is why value reporting form has a most accurate fashion. For those companies that do international business, there are two types of endorsements covering direct physical loss to the insured's business personal property in a foreign covered territory. First, there's this business personal property limited international coverage endorsement. And second, there's this property in process of manufacture by others limited international coverage endorsement. So first, let's take a look at the business personal property limited international coverage endorsement. It covers your property within the location that is first in a foreign country. Secondly, it must be under your control or under your authorized representative's control. So there are actually two requirements. It has to be in a foreign country. And secondly, you must have certain control. And also, it provides coverage for transit. It is only covered while it is in the care, custody, or control of the insured or authorized representatives. Again, you need to have control over those properties in order for it to be covered. The coverage period is usually limited to the specific period that is listed in the schedule. Such period begins to run when the property leaves the insured's premises and ends when the property returns or goes to the other premises that owns by the insured. Now, how is this property being evaluated, especially when they're outside of U.S. territory? Would it be evaluated under U.S. currency or under some foreign country's currency? This endorsement verifies that the loss will be valued in U.S. currency and are based on the values and the cost in the area of the described premises where the insured's business personal property is permanently located. The next coverage endorsement is the property in process of manufacture by others limited international coverage endorsement. Now we know that sometimes the items that we have here in the United States are actually manufactured somewhere else. Now for those manufacturers, the insurance coverage for them will be the property in process of manufacture. And those who contract with foreign manufacturers may want to have such coverage endorsements to protect their property. Now, there are certain other options under the commercial property coverage form that you could choose to have them covered as an option. And again, since they are options, they do not come automatically with your commercial property coverage. You have to pay extra premium for them. There's this additional covered property, manufacturer's consequential loss assumption, brands and label endorsement, increased cost of loss, and related expense for green updates. So there are certain types of additional covered property. and I have listed it here. You can read through them carefully, and these are additional covered property that will be covered if you choose to have them covered under endorsements. The next, we will have this manufacturer's consequential loss assumption. What does it mean to be manufacturer's consequential loss? For example, if you made suits for men, and we all know that suits come in a pair. There's this trousers and this jackets. For example, if the jackets got ruined during when you were shipping from one location to the other location, even though the pants were not ruined, they cannot be sold because your suit coming pair, and that's why the manufacturer will have consequential loss. So that is defined as the loss in value of those undamaged property as a result of physical loss to other properties. And if you choose to have manufacturer's consequential loss insured, then the loss of the consequential would be covered. And in our case, if your jacket has been ruined, the consequential loss to your pants will also be covered. The increased cost of loss and related expense is for the business who wish to replace damaged property with more environmentally friendly materials following a covered loss. So if there is a covered loss, if you choose to have this green upgrade coverage, then it will provide an additional limit of insurance to cover the increased cost of replacing damaged property with more environmentally sound materials or methods. In addition, it will also provide additional amount for expenses for these green updates, and the third coverage applies only if business income or extra expense coverage is included. Now we will talk about business income and extra expense in later sections, but here you have to bear in mind that without business income or extra expense coverage, you may not have this third coverage. Now it will cover the period of restoration by up to 30 days for any increased construction time due to the use of green upgrades. There are certain endorsements that will modify the commercial property cause of loss form. There's this ordinance of loss coverage endorsement, utility service direct damage endorsement, spoilage coverage, radioactive contamination endorsement. Now these are not covered under basic or broad form, but covered under special form. So if you only want to have some of them covered, instead of buying the much more expensive special form, you can just add endorsements to your basic or broad form. Now the ordinance of loss coverage endorsement. Remember in the last chapter we said that the ordinance of loss coverage will be one of the 8 anti-concurrent causation languages that will not be covered, no matter if there is a loss that results from a covered peril. As long as it is associated with ordinance of law, it will not be covered. However, you could anytime choose to have it covered with this endorsement. Now, what does it cover? It covers the reduction in the value of the undamaged proportion due to the ordinance of law, and it will cover the demolished and undamaged proportion of the structure and to remove its debris for coverage B. The coverage C will cover the cost to repair or construct damaged property or to reconstruct or remodel the undamaged portions of your property. So with this endorsement, any consequential loss due to defective ordinance of law will be covered. The next one, the utility service coverage covers the direct damage as an endorsement. Any type of utility failure off premises will be covered under this coverage. For example, if you have a supermarket that sells ice cream, we said that the lightning cause of loss will be covered. Okay, so if the failure of power is due to lightning, will be covered no matter with this endorsement or without this endorsement. However, if it is due to the utility company's power failure, the melting of your ice cream will not be covered. However, if you choose to have this utility service coverage, the melted ice cream will be covered because it is due to utility company's failure that is off premises. However, if for some reason your refrigerator doesn't work, now as long as it is not due to utility company's fault, it would not be covered. So what if for those situations, the insurance companies provide spoilage coverage endorsement for those causes of loss? So any type of on-premises breakdown or power outage on premises will be covered. So any type of contamination of the insured's refrigerator, cooling or humidity control equipment, any type of this failure would be covered. So if you think about this spoilage coverage endorsement, it is actually providing a broader coverage for spoilage loss rather than utility service direct damage endorsement, because the utility service direct damage endorsement only applies if the loss of power is due to the failure of utility off premises. However, the spoilage coverage will provide broader coverage. It covers spoilage of perishable stock resulting from the change of temperature or humidity due to any type of causes. Now, the CLM refers to the Commercial Lines Manual. Before 2008, the Commercial Lines of Manual has a policy limit of $50,000 per location. Now, such restriction has been removed, so it can go up to any type of limit as long as it is specified in your insurance coverage. Finally, there's this radioactive contamination endorsement. For example, if you have a chemical lab and you have some type of radioactive chemical compounds, you might want to have this radioactive contamination endorsement to protect those radioactive contamination losses. Now, be very careful. The radioactive contamination endorsement is not nuclear hazard endorsement. So nuclear hazard is not covered anywhere in the commercial property because the consequence of nuclear hazard would be catastrophic. However, radioactive contamination is only with small range of loss, and that is why it could be covered. Now we said one type of loss will not be covered, and that would be catastrophe. The reason nuclear hazard is not covered is because it will become a catastrophe hazard. Now let's take a look at some case studies. So first, Jack owns and operates restaurants in several different locations. However, he's not sure of the insurable value at each location. Describe his duties in this situation if he has the following kinds of insurance. First, if he has specific insurance, what is he going to do? Well, since Jack is not sure of the insurable value at each location. He would either have to purchase a higher amount of insurance to provide a cushion against error in estimating insurable value, or risk an uninsured loss. Now, if Jack has purchased a blanket insurance, how would the situation be different? If he has purchased blanket insurance, now assume the restaurant locations are not likely to be damaged at the same time. The minimum amount of insurance needed to comply with co-insurance will be sufficient to protect Jack's property fully. Now, if you do not quite understand why it is, you could go back to the mathematic problem that we have for this chapter for specific insurance and blanket insurance. The next case. Suppose a costume rental and sales company has stores in 10 large cities. It has stores in New Orleans before Mardi Gras and has Hollywood when it receives contracts to supply film productions. Describe the benefits that blanket insurance for the store's personal property would provide in ensuring adequate coverage for its costumes. So this costume rental is considering blanket insurance. What could potentially be the benefit from insurance company that with blanket insurance? Now, blanket insurance will cover personal property at all stores as long as this person complies with the co-insurance requirement. It will provide coverage for the entire inventory, regardless of its location. If specific insurance was written for the costumes, the values reflected at the various locations would have to either change with the inventory fluctuation or be written for the maximum possible inventory to provide adequate coverage. Now, with blanket insurance, you don't have to do that. The next case. For each of these coverage requests, identify the appropriate ISO commercial property endorsement. Now, ISO refers to Insurance Service Office. First, if the insured is a fundrai that is seeking coverage for damage to its equipment that will result from an off-premise power interruption. Now, this is off-premise power interruption. What type of endorsement would they want? Well, the utility service direct damage endorsement will solve this problem perfectly, because this insured is worried about this off-premise power interruption. Utility service direct damage endorsement will cover the loss perfectly. What about someone want to cover the spoilage of his flower in the event of either off-premise power interruption or on-premise breakdown of refrigeration equipment? What would he do? Well, he would go ahead and purchase the spoilage coverage endorsement so that both off-premise power interruption and on-premise breakdown of equipment will be covered. Finally, let's take a look at a research facility who wants to cover contamination of its property that could result from escape or any reason of radioactive materials used in the facility's research activities. Remember, the radioactive contamination endorsement will solve this problem. And again, this is not nuclear hazard endorsement. Nuclear hazard will not be covered anywhere because the nuclear hazard consequences will be catastrophic losses. Here ends topic 4.